This is what makes women's basketball so fire.
I mean, I just love playing the game. It's fun.
To see how far the game has grown has been amazing.
They say nobody watching. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people in there, Martin.
Yeah, I think I've always just been able to get downhill.
When recess came, like, I had my sneakers on.
I hit them with a hezzy. After that, they quit.
What is up? What is up? What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Protect Our Queen podcast presented by Basketball Society. Joining me on the show, as always, is my guy, Martin Soares of Basketball Society, and special guest for the night, Mike Hughes.
Put that boy Mike in the middle.
Mike in the middle?
Mike in the middle.
Put him in the middle?
Center frame.
Oh, yeah.
Come on now. You know we got
him in the middle.
The kid in the building.
What's going on, man?
Mikey, how we feeling, man?
Man, Marcus is gonna say it at some point. I feel like Martin and I bond more on this show because I don't know. Earlier, Marcus said something about like him just being so far away from me in age, and I'm 24, he's 21. So like, I got heartburn right now from some nachos. So if you want to know how I'm really doing, that's what I'm rocking with. But see that face, like I don't know. I don't know.
Heartburn from nachos at the ripe age of 24 is crazy.
The nachos, man. The nachos that get you right. Cheese combination, too much salsa.
Yeah, I got the white man stomach as well. It's just it wasn't in my favor growing up, bro. Like it's just it is what it is.
The heartburn is real.
I don't eat nachos, so I wouldn't know.
You're also just such a young individual, and I'm an old sack of shit, according to you. So I don't know what I mean.
I mean,
it's not my words. It's not my words. It's your words.
If there's anyone I'd call old here, it'd be Martin, and I can't even do that because Martin's younger than my siblings. So calling Martin old would almost be like calling my brother and my sister old.
I don't know. Get in the gym, Mike Hughes. That's all I know. I gotta get in the gym.
I can't do that. There is someone that is old. Her name's Diana Taurasi. She retired from women's basketball yesterday. What a legend Diana Taurasi is. I know that made Martin feel old. I talked to him about that yesterday. I asked him because he texted me. He said, I can't believe Diana Taurasi retired. I was like, does that make you feel old? And he was like, yes. I was like, it's okay. Yeah. ESPNW tweeted, defenses rejoice. The incredible career of Diana Taurasi has come to an end. Diana Taurasi is a former MVP, 14-time All-WNBA, 11-time All-Star, 3-time national champion and WNBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP. She was the first overall pick in 2004. She was Rookie of the Year in 2004. She's the only 6-time Olympic gold medalist in USA men's or women's basketball history. She's a 5-time scoring champion, and she is the all-time leading scorer in WNBA history. Not only is she the only player with 10,000 points, I remember correctly, she's the only player with over 8,000 points in her career, which is absolutely remarkable. Martin, you've watched more DT basketball than probably Mike and I combined. Do you have a favorite memory of Diana Taurasi?
Oh man. Well, it's personal for me because 2 of her 3 titles in Phoenix, she won alongside my sister, Cappie Pondexter. The one finals MVP that she didn't win went to my sister, Cappie Pondexter, in 2007 when they beat the Detroit Shock. And so it's personal. I don't have a favorite DT moment. And it's mainly because, again, this is personal because my sister Cappie played at Rutgers, and Diana was her kind of in-house Big East rival. My other sister, who's a little older than Cappie, also came out of Chicago, Tasha Pointer, the current assistant women's coach at Rutgers and a Rutgers legend. She took Rutgers to the Final Four in 2000. Her in-house Big East rival at UConn was Sue Bird. So I literally grew up watching my sister Tasha battle against the likes of Sue Bird at UConn. That translated from Tasha to Cappie. Sue Bird translated from UConn translated from Sue Bird to Diana Taurasi. And so I had a good 8 years of absolutely despising UConn, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Gino. It was a real hate. And so when we started to project where Cappie might go in the draft in 2007, we noticed that Phoenix was getting a top 3 pick. Cappie was going to be a top pick. Simone Augustus went number 1 overall. Cappie went number 2. And my brother and I started to get really excited about the prospect of, hey, the Diana hate drought is over. Now, if we can team up with Diana, it's all good. That's really the thing, fellas. It's like when you hate a player that much, it's usually because they're like that good and they always come in and kill your team. So it was really a pleasure for me to become a Phoenix Mercury fan, to be able to root for Diana, and then just become an even bigger fan of her, and just be able to appreciate her game. One of my favorite shooters, one of my favorite shot makers of all time, one of my favorite shooting forms of all time. Candace Parker became my GOAT when she won her title in Chicago. Shout out to the shy kid, Mike Hughes.
That's my favorite DT moment, by the way, is belt to ass to Phoenix in 2021.
Your favorite DT moment is losing?
That's my favorite moment.
Crazy. That's crazy. But no, I mean, DT is one of the, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 3 to 5 players who have a valid GOAT case. Yeah. So plenty of people call her their GOAT, and that's totally valid. Like I said, Candace became my GOAT a few years ago that I made that transition, but Diana's still right there, right up there with Candace for me. But yeah, one of the GOATs, man, one of the greatest. 20 years, that's clean. And last thing I'll say, I would have loved to see a farewell tour for Diana. I said on here a couple weeks ago, I'd love to see her run one more season with that group with Alyssa Thomas and Satu over there now. But this is on brand for Diana to go out this way on her terms. 20 years, no farewell tour, no, like that's not even her. Like this is on brand for her to kind of go out on her terms. So that's pretty cool.
Just some quick reactions to Diana Taurasi retiring. She Knows Sports said Maya Moore's gone, Sue Bird's gone, Sylvia Fowles, Candace Parker, Diana Taurasi. It really is a new day for women's basketball, and while the league is in good hands, it's still so wild to see our greats hanging up the sneakers. Real quick, Martin, I actually wanted to ask you this question because I saw this tweet and I immediately thought of you.
Yeah, shout out to Tarika because she's older than me, but not that 18. Tarika's been covering the league for a while.
She has been. She's been covering the league for a while. Stuff. Is there a 5 in this generation of women's basketball that you think could beat that 5 of that generation of women's basketball?
I would say not yet, but it's close. Once Juju and them get there, for sure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so. I think we could probably pick a 5 that could go. If we're talking, because some players aren't even in their prime yet. So to Mike's point, maybe in a few years we'd know more. But yeah, it's tough to say because we've seen all of these players' primes, and that would still be pretty tough. I'll sneak this in real quick too on the whole feeling old thing, because the one name that's missing from this list for me is Maya Moore. Like for me, the big 3 of my era of like the generational WNBA greats is Diana, Candace, and Maya Moore. And Maya Moore kind of went out on her own terms. Some of us feel like we were cheated of seeing her play more basketball. Candace went out on a good note, but she also went out injured. We didn't really get to see her complete that run in that one season with Vegas. So it's crazy seeing, again, like I said, kind of the big 3 of what I feel like is my era. Now they're not playing anymore. We're really going into a new generation.
I think I'll probably feel that way once Steph, LeBron, and KD hang it up. I think that's when I'll get to that point.
Martin said that earlier about his love-hate relationship with DT, and as a Bulls fan, that's how I felt about LeBron once he went to LA. I was like, okay, the D-Rose era is over, whatever. Jimmy Butler's gone. I could just love LeBron James and respect the game now. And the last 6 years has just been like so much fun because it's just, I'm born right after the 90s era. So it's like hate in my heart immediately after you're born. It's raised in preschool. They're telling you like, you do not like LeBron James. And like, I'm like, all right, it's Michael Jordan's the GOAT. And now I'm like, I have my own mind and I can be my own person. And I'm like, this MJ guy is raw, but LeBron's the GOAT. It's not even a conversation. So like it's cool to like you have that same kind of connection with that. And like again, like these are two individuals who had 20+ year careers and did everything around the sun. You know what I mean? So it's pretty dope.
Basketball legend Lindsay Whalen said Diana Taurasi is the best player of all time because she's the best communicator of all time. Her in-practice/in-game communication is unmatched.
Best trash talker of all time, for sure. We know that.
Absolutely.
We know that.
Did you guys see the video? We'll get to it on the next live. Did you guys see the video that Unrivaled posted where everyone's talking about their welcome to the league moments and it's just a bunch of assault charges? And then Angel and Rakia at the end are like, oh, DT was so nice to me. It reminded me of how older siblings, like with younger siblings with massive age gaps, like me and my sister, for example, are always talking about how, like, my mom that I have is not the same as the mom that my sister had. Like, much softer, not at all as violent. I just had the same thing with my dad the other day. It just made me think about that. I don't know. I didn't know. I knew DT was a bully. Like, I knew that, obviously. Great trash talker. I didn't know that she was physically abusing opposing players on the court like this. Like,
I mean,
I think Kayla McBride said she got chopped in the throat one time or something like that.
Dude, I still remember, not to bring DT in it, but I remember her commenting on, I was there in person. You could hear the bang hit the floor from outside the arena when Alyssa Thomas body slammed Angel Reese in the beginning of the year. And like DT was like, welcome to the league, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's just what it is. I think everybody has a story about somebody in this league, kind of just like you said, like it's a welcome to the league check moment.
And honestly, Diana, again, the trash talk. I physically was in arenas watching her play in college. I was in Phoenix at times watching her play in Phoenix. I've been at games close enough to see the kind of things she says to refs, to coaches. I heard her call a ref a Nazi once. I was in person. I heard her call a ref a Nazi. Like, yo, this chick was built totally different. She talked totally different. Like, that's why when you see people talking about her, I saw she was on Good Morning America this morning and everyone's giving her flowers and talking about her, and she's kind of going around. One of the main things you'll hear so many people say is that it's very similar to Kobe in that I think Kelsey Plum said it flat out, like she was an asshole. Like, she was great. I looked up to her. She was, all-time great. She was an asshole in like the most sincerest, complimentary way. Just the competitive spirit, the way she went after it. She was different, man. She comes from that old school blood. Yeah.
When I saw this picture about Draymond, I did not know that this happened, and it popped me. She told Draymond, "Hey Draymond, how does it feel to be the only person in this room who's never been double teamed during the 2016 Rio Olympics?" And then this is the tweet I was telling you about the other day, Martin. Someone said Diana telling Kelsey Plum that she has to hip check Paige for no reason every time they play for the next 7 years, but like in a loving way for legacy purposes. I just thought that was funny. WNBA Game tweeted a video. I didn't pull the video, but it's an audio clip where during the Wubble season, Diana Taurasi told a ref that she'd see them in the lobby because she didn't agree with a call that was made or something like that. I remember it's that. Very, very Diana Taurasi coded to tell a ref, "I'll see you in the lobby." And then, like I said, from the Unrivaled clip, she punched me in the gut. She elbowed me. She chopped me in the throat one time. The league is going to miss Diana Taurasi.
Yo, there are some great quotes out there and stuff. If you see stuff floating around of her and Gino has some hilarious Diana stories from like when they first met, when he recruited her in high school, times at UConn. Like there are some, the Gino and Diana moments. Those are some of the funniest things you're going to see.
Absolutely. It's always somewhat bittersweet when a legend retires, and now I guess this is kind of like that other tweet said a couple slides ago. I guess now it's time for the new generation to come in and start filling some of those gaps. There's a lot to talk about as it relates to the Chicago Sky and the massive trade from Sunday night. We'll start, however, with a clip of Martin from a couple weeks ago.
If there's no Olivia Miles, who is Seattle getting? Then where is Chicago going? Because I've been making the case that is who Chicago should be hoping and praying can actually fall to them if Olivia is in the draft and she doesn't happen to get drafted at number 2. So where does Chicago go if there's no Olivia Miles? So think the conversation gets really interesting, really based on if Olivia Miles declares or not. That's kind of what we're waiting for now to figure out even what the rest of the draft is going to look like.
A lot to talk about and a lot to unpack. Mike, we'll start with you as the shy kid, the one that goes to the games, covers the team, and is a fan of the team. Flat out, Mike, was trading the 3rd overall pick and 2 future firsts the right move for Chicago?
Talk to me, Mike.
It's pretty ballsy. It's pretty ballsy, especially with someone 1 year on their deal. Obviously, the CBA is coming up, so I think a lot of things are going to shake up over the next couple of years. That 2026, 2027, I forget which one's a swap, but it hurts because it reminds me so much of when Wade traded 3 firsts for Marina Mabrey. And it was like, okay, if we did get the number 1 overall pick this year, it was going to Dallas no matter what. And when there's a Juju Watkins just a couple years away, not that I expect the Sky to be able to be in that position. And I think that's Jeff Pagliacca and the entire organization right now understands that that's not where we want to be. It's a win now situation. And it's very similar to what we saw with James Wade, working with James for years. James was not trying to rebuild. James wanted to walk in and punch you in the throat every single time he stepped on the court. Like, we wanted to win a championship. That was a huge part of getting Candace Parker. So I definitely do see it. And it's interesting to me when, you and I and even Martin, like, we've all been in the same threads talking about, I proposed the trade before it even happened. I was the one that was like, Chicago, Vegas, and Seattle need to do a 3-team deal. KP comes to Chicago. Jewel, I'll let Marcus go hang out with Jewel Lloyd. I'll take KP off your hands, no problem. And then I thought maybe something would shake out with Kennedy Carter. That's another podcast for a different day. To this day, she's still a free agent, but I definitely think you're hoping it's in the right direction, because whereas last year around this time we were talking about how the Sky traded Julie Aleman and Lee to get the number 8 overall pick, which turned into Angel, and then obviously trading Kalia Copper, who they just extended, to get the number 3 pick, which was Camila Cardoso. Now you're trading picks to get star players. So for me, I think in Jeff's eyes, and I was talking to him the other day about it, about where he was at, and Jeff's not going to tell you nothing. So like, that's like, I was like, hey, Jeff, we got to get you on the show. He's like, yeah, we'll get to it. And I'm like, I know it. He's got more moves he's ready to make. So maybe we'll catch him sometime in the off season or in the beginning of the season. But I'm really excited for what this could mean. And I kind of told Marcus the same thing. It's all about bringing in that championship experience. I felt like outside of Teresa Weatherspoon and Ty Young, there really wasn't a lot of playoff experience on this team last year. And when both of those players are coaches, that's a problem. So now you bring back Courtney Vandersloot, who is Skytown, winning 2 championships throughout the last 4 years, 1 in New York, 1 in Chicago. Obviously, that's going to be huge for them. You literally have the point guard back in the city. And then on top of that, Ariel Atkins, that's the point guard.
Whoa.
Let's be.
Whoa, there might be a trademark on that thing.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, let's be a little bit respectful here.
As is respectful.
I was letting you get your stuff off there, but
hey, I'll just say it. But I definitely do understand it. Ariel Atkins, I know a lot of people haven't been watching Mystics basketball in a long time. So you might not know the name if you're a new fan. You might not remember the name if it's because it's been a few years since the Mystics were relevant and winning a championship in 2019. But, you can always check out Dwayne Marcus, who's doing amazing stuff over there. He's doing interviews pre-post game. He's there in there like swimwear, baby. This is a WNBA champion. This is somebody who has made WNBA history, making the all-defensive team 5 years in a row, which is something that's never been done before. If you look at the statistics in Mystics history, she's pretty much top 5 in every single category, from all-time points, 3-point percentage, assists, steals, everything. She's there, and she's a huge defensive anchor, which was something that I felt like the Sky had at a liability when it comes to the guard position last year. So where I know this is very long-winded, but like my thought process and the problem that I had was, like you guys said, I was pretty much set in stone that we were going to use the number 3 overall pick, whether that's trading down or whether that's trading up or maybe just staying at 3. When you weren't interested in Jewel, when you weren't interested in KP, that was when I was like, okay, they're just going to keep the pick.
Yeah.
But to kind of pivot and get someone like Ariel, something had to have occurred. And I don't know what that is. I couldn't speak to what that is, but I feel like you have to continue to make these superstars happy. You have to make Camilla and Angel buy into the city of Chicago. And I love the clip you guys posted earlier. She's ready to win a championship here. Like, these are 2 winners. And I will tell you, being around that locker room, being on the floor, I saw Camila Cardoso visibly upset at certain points throughout the season last year when we lost 7+ straight. I saw Angel Reese getting fed up with just the losing. These are 2 winners. So, I mean, the idea of drafting another rookie, as great as that is, because you have to build through the draft, it's just not what's going on anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you see DeWanna Bonner and you see Howard going to Indiana. That's a big deal. And if Chicago just gets beat by them twice this year, people want to say there's not a rivalry. I'm there. I'm telling you, like, it's there and it's very much alive. So they had to do something. Whether Ariel is the right move or not, I think it all just depends on whether or not you extend her, whether it's courting or not. Like, it's going to be a big deal to get her back full time, because if you just lose her after a year, I mean, that's a very questionable move.
Martin,
For
where are
sure.
you at on the where are you at on it? Because you and I have spent the past couple weeks since we've been back really speculating about what Chicago needs. A lot of it surrounding Olivia Miles to trade away the third overall pick. How are you feeling about that?
I mean, I think it really speaks to, and like, I know we've probably all been seeing and hearing just the uncertainty from these teams about who is actually going to be available in this draft. So I think the uncertainty about who's going to be there, and then just uncertainty about, I know we're all excited about, because there are so many good players in this draft, in the next few drafts. And Mike, you brought up the 2027 pick swap. I think that I think we all look at that as like, man, that could come back to bite you. There's so many good players coming out of these next few drafts. So, and I think a lot of us are a little prisoner of the moment in that, the women's college game is so popular. It's so booming. There are so many shiny, attractive prospects, right? And it feels like you could, especially with a top 3 pick, it feels like you could get a really good player. But, again, it could be depending on who goes 1, 2, at 3, there would be a really good player available.
Sure.
The way I see it is that, and the more I've thought about it, I agree with this line of thinking. Ariel Atkins, and you're right, Mike, a lot of people haven't watched Mystics basketball, may not be that familiar. The number one thing for me is that the girl can hoop. She had her career high against Vegas last year. She put 36 or 38 on them. She's lefty. I love that. The kind of mixture with Angel. They're both lefties, southpaws. Ariel Atkins, you mentioned the all defensive teams, Mike. She's highly productive on the offensive end as well. She's been getting better and better. She can create off the dribble. She's a legit offensive option at the 2 guard, which is what we've been talking about. Chicago needs another offensive scoring guard, especially with Kennedy Carter being in question. So when you look at the fit, Ariel Atkins really is kind of the perfect kind of player that fits with what Chicago wants to do, because they're still, I think, going to have a bit like that defensive kind of gritty identity, but they needed help with perimeter scoring. Ariel Atkins, especially last season, from the film I saw, she's showing that she can legit score the ball from the perimeter. So she may not be a Jewel Lloyd or a Kelsey Plum or a big name, but with her length, her versatility, her shot making, scoring, and her two-way ability, she's a legit two-way player. I think it makes it perfect for Chicago, and they have the thought process of she is more ready now to help us compete than any rookie would be. Unless it's a generational type of rookie, that's a player that you're going to have to wait a couple more years to really get into the groove. To get a proven player who's a champion, who has experience, and who fits what they're going to be doing, the more I thought about it, I'm like, it makes sense, and they're going to be better for it. They're going to be it makes them better.
And I think that was my big issue going into this offseason. And shout out Izzy. She's just got her bag. She's headed to New York. I'm excited to see, Jonquel Jones, what they're in Stewie, and what Izzy's going to be able to do over there. But the wings were going to be one of my biggest questions, and how the Sky were going to address adding more shooters around somebody like Angel and Camilla. And they've done that. And bringing in Ariel, not only a great 3-point shooter, shot, I think 35% last year, which, it's just to each their own. That might be league average in the league, but like, I would kill for league average in the league just 1-2 years ago for the Chicago Sky. Shout out Robin Parks, but it was just really Robin Parks outside of that, and Kalia Copper at times. But for me, I think bringing in someone like Ariel just makes someone like Kia Nurse just so exciting to me, because you could plug Kia at the 3, you could put Rebecca Allen maybe at the 3, depending on what you want to do. A little undersized, but definitely just spaces the floor, and maybe not the point guard to you guys. But when you have someone like a Courtney Vandersloot there as well, and you have Camilla going into year 2, who in China has just been absolutely dominant. Angel, who, is just, despite everybody saying whatever they want to say about her, what she's been able to do over the last few weeks and Unrivaled is just got everybody quiet. You know what I mean? I haven't seen one negative comment about her from a verified individual who I know watches basketball. I think it's just going to be really interesting to me and again, potential is like, a grand scheme of things at the end of the day, that we can say, well, this could be this and this could be that. Like, at the end of the day, we just got to wait and see. But with what Camilla could be in year 2, going into the year fully healthy, with what Angel can be and what she's already been in Unrivaled, and go towards the second half of last year, I mean, you're looking at 2 potential top 15 players by the end of the 2025 season. You pair that up with Ariel Atkins and others, like some real championship caliber players, Tyler Marsh, who's worked with Asia. I mean, I think it's a match made in heaven for several different reasons, but this team has spaced the floor. They've created the space that they need. And now you also have Michaela as well. And Michaela was shooting the lights out the ball towards the better half of that last year. So I'm really excited to see how Tyler Marsh is going to be able to just shake up so many different lineups depending on who they're playing against.
I mean, I agree. First of all, I think this was the right move for the reasons that for the reason that you guys mentioned, but more bigger than that though, right? Like, I know the Sky's offseason started off a little bit questionably, firing Therese Weatherspoon, right? That kind of came out of nowhere. No one expected that. It was really weird. But if you look at what they've done since then, like all that aside, the Chicago Sky have strung together a very solid offseason, right? Mm-hmm. There's like, if you're going to fire Teresa Weatherspoon, who was loved by many, you have to replace her with someone who you feel is capable of winning a championship. And there's no better place to look than an assistant coach from a team in Vegas who's won 2 of the last 4 championships in the league, right? And has been consistently in the championship picture. So the hire of Tyler Marsh, I think, is great, especially for the development of Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, to your point, Mike, right? Then you look at the players that they've brought in, right? They've brought back Courtney Vandersloot. They brought in Rebecca Allen via trade. They signed Kia Nurse, and now you're trading for Ariel Atkins. The Chicago Sky's biggest issue last season, aside from defense, was the ability to shoot the basketball. They ranked 9th in the WNBA last season as a team shooting from 3, 32%. They were the only team last season to average less than 5 made threes a game. They were the only team last season to take less than 15 threes a game. Both of those are dead last rankings. Now you're bringing in Courtney Vandersloot, who's a career 34% shooter from 3. You're bringing in Rebecca Allen, who's a career 36% shooter from 3. You're bringing in Kia Nurse, who's a career 32% shooter from 3. And now also Ariel Atkins, who's a career 36% shooter from 3. When you have arguably the best young duo in basketball, and Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, who are going to be better in year 2 and are going to do a lot of dirty work down low, double machines across both of them, right? Martin, you and I talked about how it's going to be hard to get rebounds against them. Them as a duo ranked amongst the top in the league as far as rebounds per game is concerned. Now you're spacing the floor, giving Angel and Camila both more space to work. Angel herself individually has been improving her game. We saw the work that she's done with Lisa Leslie, which I know Martin is pleased about. No more underhand scoop layups from Angel Reese, it seems, but she's also working on expanding her range. So now you've brought in 4 players who can help make sure she has that space in the 10 to 15 foot area to get her shots off. Like, there's no reason not to like this move. And there's a lot of people on Twitter who don't like this move because of the trade of the 3rd overall pick and have used that as a way to disparage Ariel Atkins. And look, you guys have both mentioned that not a lot of people have been watching Mystics basketball. I've watched a lot of Mystic basketball with my own 2 eyes in the building. There's not a better player you could have asked for at this point in the offseason via trade than Ariel Atkins. Like, there's really not. Like Mike said, only player in the first 5 years of her career to make an all defensive team, either first or second. She is the epitome of 3-and-D. And last season, while the numbers weren't super outrageous compared to what she's normally averaging, if you look at what they were asking her to do last season, it's the best season she played of her career, if you ask me, right? Brittany Sykes missed time, and everyone missed time, and at points she had to be the lead guard. At points she had to take over and be the leading scorer, which Martin, you alluded to with the 36 points against Vegas. At times she had to be the team's best perimeter defender if Brittany Sykes was out, or the best wing defender. She more often than not was guarding the opposing team's best player. Like, you are getting a very solid player with championship experience who in year 2 was a key contributor to the franchise's only championship that they won in 2019. So I like this fit. And to the point about her being an unrestricted free agent in 2026, like, I hate to sound crass, but I don't know if you guys have noticed, everybody that signed a deal is going to be a free agent in 2026. That's just what happens when there's a new CBA on the way. So I don't look at that and say that that's a reason to be concerned. I think if you are, to your point, Chicago still has work to do to convince Ariel Atkins that this is a place for her to stay long-term. Sure. But if you are the Chicago Sky, what's not to like about staying here? right? Aside
Yeah.
from the lack of a legitimate facility, which I know that they're supposedly working on, right?
By the way, I've seen it. I've seen the
right,
shit.
no, like it's on the way. So and I know that's been the big thing. It's on
It
the
is
way.
in a very unsafe neighborhood in the city, but it is there. I will tell you
It's
that.
on the way, and that's all that matters. It's better than what the Mystics have, which is using the Wizards practice court, right? So like it's better than what she's coming from. Like this is the Chicago Sky have an opportunity to be relevant again. The Chicago Sky have an opportunity to be competitive again. I think the Chicago Sky are going to be a lock for a playoff team. And originally, I was concerned about the trading of the future first-round picks, but when you look at the way that the lottery is constructed, it's not like the NBA or other teams where it's just the worst team every year. It's a compilation of 2 years. And so if over the next 2 years, the Chicago Sky are good and they're a playoff team, that 2027 pick, that 2026 pick or whatever year it wasn't going to land them Hannah Hidalgo or Juju Watkins anyway, unless something catastrophic happened. So when you take that in consideration as well, me personally, again, despite how weird the offseason started with the firing of Teresa Weatherspoon, I think the acquisition of Ariel Atkins is a cherry on top to a very, very solid offseason because it could be worse. The Sky could be the Mystics and have done nothing until 2 days ago. And instead, they've slowly been adding and building to potentially be a playoff team in 2025.
It just took us a while for you to hit us back, brother. Like we had the offer out there, you know. I don't know, y'all were busy doing something. I don't know if it involved basketball, but y'all were doing it. But no, but like just to play devil's advocate for a little bit, I don't want to waste too much time on it. But like I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because in a situation, and like you said, catastrophic things have to happen. I remember being in the room when I found out, hey, James Wade is on the Toronto Raptors now. Bye. And it was like, what do you, he's the GM and the head coach, brother. What do you mean? And everybody that came here was like, and Marina Mabry just got traded for 3 first-round picks to be here. Like you talked about, like those pick swaps in 2025, you know, it comes back to bite you in the ass because you thought that Kalia Copper, Courtney Williams, Alana Smith, you know, a bunch of individuals who were in the finals last year or very close to it, couldn't work together well in Chicago, but found a way to work together in other places. You know, you definitely can find yourself in one of those situations where maybe this core just doesn't work out, or hey, and not saying these are conversations I'm hearing whatsoever, not at all. But you never know when a player is unhappy. You know what I mean? You never know when an Ariel Atkins or a Camila Cardoso might not feel like they're being utilized correctly. Like things can happen and things can switch up. The Chicago Sky could potentially have the #1 overall pick the year Juju declares, but they might not either. You know what I mean? Like, and if that's the mentality you're going into it with, I say this for every Sky fan listening. If you're upset with the Sky trading #3 for Ariel Atkins, then every every Mercury fan should have been pissed that they traded #3 for Kalia Copper. The reason why you're not is because that is a franchise caliber player. You just have to give yourself a second to see it. Kalia Copper was a finals MVP. Kalia Copper is a good friend of mine and somebody who I adore for on and off the court, but not a lot of people would say Kalia Copper is that #3 overall pick unless you watch Kalia Copper's game. You know, like that is Chicago forever. Like that, Chicago runs on Ka, and that's what it is. And when I knew they were trading away #3 for Kalia, I knew it was because they knew they weren't getting a Camila Cardoso. You already have a Brittany Griner. So to Sky fans, I'll ask you this. If Olivia Miles isn't there, like Martin alluded to, if Paige Beckers isn't there at 3, shocker to nobody, where are you going? Because there's a lot of great forwards. There's solid guards. But how are they going to immediately impact an Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso going into year 2? You need a guard who's going to be able to go in there and teach them how to win in the W. These are 2 collegiate champions. These are 2 juggernauts that are on the same team. You need experience. So to bring in Sloot, a WNBA champion, who's been here for, I mean, we talk about Taurasi. I mean, look at Sloot and Quiggs, the Vander Quiggs for years. You know, and I'm curious. Maybe Allie, and she never retired. She never retired. So I don't know. We'll see.
She can still shoot it. I'm sure she can still spin it.
We'll see what happens come July. I know she's always at the game too. Just throw her a jersey and see what happens. But you know, I think for me, it's what are you looking for? And you have a proven seasoned vet who's only 28. We call her a seasoned vet, but she's done everything. This is somebody that you want, and you're not going to get that at #3, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, and so I'll also say, let's not forget that you guys still have the #10 pick. And I think I think a lot of these people on Twitter and even Sky fans and stuff, again, I think that like Paige and Olivia are the two big names. There are
Sure.
other really good players, but I feel like
Fifi,
people
all of
are
them.
assuming that this draft, like 1 through 5, is I just think the average fan is thinking that the number 3 pick, and it's fair to assume, but you're assuming that the number 3 pick, you're getting an Olivia Miles or a major player at number 3. And again, fair to assume, but if you look at the field, again, Olivia and Paige are probably going to be off the board at 3. I have said that, everyone in Skytown in the Chicago area should have been praying to whatever God they pray to that Olivia Miles somehow falls to number 3. Because she is, like, to me, not having the chance to get Olivia Miles, because I am huge on, she's probably, if I was Chicago, she'd probably be, not only would she be the top name on my board, she'd be on this side of the board, and then everybody else would be way down here. Like,
and not to
player
not to
that
cut
they
you off,
really need in this draft. So if you're not able to get her, I'm cool. I'm like, it's like, not to say you couldn't get another good player. I vouched for maybe looking at Georgia Amore last week. I brought her name up. Like, there are other good guards. They're not Olivia Miles. So that's where I understand the thought process, because Ariel Atkins right now is ready to go. And next year, Ariel Atkins is probably going to have a better season and is already a better player than whoever is going to get drafted at number 3.
Right. And that's like, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but like, that's exactly what I've been hearing. Like, they were trying to see this is what I've heard from several people on the beat, no one in the front office, but I've heard that they were trying to really get number 2 because they wanted to be able to be in that position. Now, I haven't heard that from Jeff. I haven't heard that from anybody in his circle, but I believe it. And I believe it because, for the simple reason of whom Olivia Miles could be working with Courtney Vandersloot. I mean, who's better to learn from? You know what I mean? So I think it would be really interesting. I think the second they realized that wasn't going to happen is when you pull the trigger on Ariel, where I think they never really were in on Jewel. They never would, as much as I would love to bring her back to the city, a little homecoming part 2, we'll see what happens. But, I definitely think it worked out in its best interest, man. And even with Olivia, again, we talk about potential all the time, but potential is just potential until you go out there and show up and show out. You know what I mean? Like,
I would take Olivia Miles today over Sloot.
Sure. Oh, I mean, but if we're talking prime for prime, you know what I mean?
I said today. I'm not talking.
That's what I mean.
Olivia Miles tomorrow over Sloot right now.
But if they're both the same age and both in the draft, I'm taking Sloot. I do not care.
What do you mean the same age? What do you mean? Olivia's only going to get better.
I'm taking Sloot. I think we forget. I think we forget.
Your mic just cut out.
And trust me, you were going to want a younger guard in there playing with. Like, you could talk point guard, and I love Sloot too, but she is not the answer to your problems at point guard. So going back to the number 10 pick right now in the ESPN mock, they have you guys going with Sanaya Rivers out of NC State. I would love that pick. She could work really well. Great two-way player. She's not like a polished guard type, but Pow is floating around there. AZ Fudd might drop. So there may be a chance to get a good guard at number 10 who might be just as good as whoever is coming at number 3 now. Because it probably won't be Olivia Miles. But you're going to get somebody good at number 10. So that's also why I can understand this.
Mess around, trade down, just get Flau'jae and call it a storybook season, man. That's all I'm that's all. They just finished the story, brother.
What, next year? She'll probably come out next year. That'll
probably.
Flau'jae in Chicago would be
fire.
She ain't
coming. She ain't coming at all. But it's just something I'm convincing myself of, that maybe she'll just secretly declare out of nowhere,
Let's switch gears, talk about the other half of the trade. But before we do that, let's kick it to me complaining about the Mystics last week. At some point, the Mystics need to make a decision about whether or not they're actually going to try to be competitive to get back to where they were just a couple years ago. Now, I don't know if they're holding their breath and waiting for Elena Delle Donne to announce that she's coming back to DC, but you also haven't done anything over the past year and a half to make her want to come back to DC. Like, I feel like this is a very disappointing offseason for a team that has young players in Shakira Austin and Aaliyah Edwards who you can build around if you decide to do so. I know they let go of the GM and the head coach, but like, there doesn't seem to really be a direction right now in DC, and they have to be losers because they didn't. Everyone else did something, and they didn't.
They heard you, Marcus.
I guess it's better to show up late to the party than to never show up to the party at all. The Mystics now have the 3rd, 4th, and 6th overall pick. And as of today, CBS Sports Mock Draft has Dominique Malonga from France being drafted by Mystics at 3. Martin, we'll start with you this time. The question that we've seemingly asked 3 or 4 times on this show since coming back. But now it's a different situation and a different circumstance. Who should the Mystics draft with the 3rd pick in April?
Who should the Mystics draft at 3? I do think that this Dominique Malonga girl is, I mean, she's like a prospect. A project feels like, but she's 6'6". I've seen videos of her doing spin move, drop step dunks. That's good enough for me. I'd pick her. I'd pick her. I think she's going to go top 5 to somebody, but you have 3 picks in the top 6. So you go ahead and pick her. You can go her, you can go Anissa Morrow, you can go, I don't know, like maybe bruh, it almost doesn't matter. You're right. 3 picks in the top 6. So go. I mean, all I'm thinking is like go big forward guard, like try to spread it out that way. So
sure.
I don't have a definitive answer at number 3. I still don't.
Mike, do you have a definitive answer at number 3?
Kiki. Yeah, I'm going with Kiki, man. I'm not fucking with anybody other than Kiki at 3. I think what I've seen from her is consistency. For
the record, I forgot. I thought that. See, this is why the draft order, everything's getting mixed up.
Everything's everywhere for sure.
Everything's all over the place because I made the case that I felt like Seattle should consider Kiki at 2 if Olivia is not on the board. If she doesn't declare. That's why I need to know if Olivia is declaring so I can actually answer these questions.
I mean, do you remember at the same time last year? I mean, there was somebody out there saying that Clark wasn't going to declare and she was going to stay an extra year. Like these were problems we were even having last year, and it's going to continue to get worse.
And people are saying Paige doesn't want to play in Dallas. That's a whole rumor. So now even people are moving Paige. So it's weird.
Yeah, it's really
she's going to Dallas. She going to Dallas. She going to Dallas.
And
but
Dallas is fine. I don't know what's wrong with Dallas.
Dallas is a good city. Great city. Great team now that Kurt Miller's got his hands on it and what they've done in the offseason.
Get me away from Kurt Miller, please. But I can't stand that man. I've met that man several times. Cannot stand him. Don't know why. Just can't stand him. But no, man, Kiki, I think is the move. Fudd is also out there, I think, for the other multiple picks that they have as well. I mean, maybe they're out there, maybe they're not. We'll see who declares. But I love Martin's kind of like it was quick, but go guard. I mean, go forward, go guard, go big, and that's really where I'm at with it. A project at 3, I ain't going no project at 3.
No, I'm with
sorry.
You.
Alexander Sarr is already in Washington. We don't, or no, I don't even know where he. I think he's in Washington.
He's here.
He's here.
He is.
Yeah, don't need another one.
No more French projects in DC.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. No, if Kiki's there, it should be Kiki. That's I mean, I had said last week if Kiki's available at 2 and there's no Olivia, Seattle should go with Kiki. She's the next best player on the board. So that really should be the answer. I'm with you on that.
So I've been very adamant about Kiki Iriafen coming to DC. In fact, when we found out that the Mystics had the 4th overall pick, that's when I started pushing the agenda that Kiki should come to DC. And I'm still on that wave. I do like the model, Martin, that you've put out there of some combination of a guard, a big, and a wing. And I think when you are the Washington Mystics, considering how expendable 3 very key players on this roster are from last season, we'll talk about that in a second, you kind of have to go that reason for that exact reason. I think Kiki's going to end up in I think Kiki's going to end up in DC, whether it's 3 or 4. And I think she should. I think that her numbers look good at USC because she's a good player. I don't think she herself individually has looked as good or as dominant as she did last year in Stanford for different reasons that Martin and I have got into. The system is seemingly non-existent. The fit's not really the same. She's not able to get her stuff off the way that she was at all in Stanford, but she's still a great player and she should still come to DC. I think Martin and I, a couple weeks ago, maybe when we first came back, talked about what happens with Anissa Morrow. And I think if there is a team that should take the risk on Anissa Morrow this early in the draft, it would be the Mystics, because they're the only team that can afford to figure out where she best fits. Right. A couple weeks ago, Martin and I talked about how Anissa Morrow it's going to be tough to judge her for the next level because she doesn't really have a position because she's a bit undersized. And considering that the Mystics need a complete makeover of the roster, I think she would fit in just fine as long as they have the correct players around her to make whatever position they decide her to play fit. And I think she would be a really viable piece for them. At number 3, I think the Mystics should take Sonia Citron.
Okay. I was about to say she should be the wing. She should be the guard. You can get her at 3 or 4.
Yeah, I do think they should take Sonia Citron, and I was a bit on the fence about her for no reason other than like when I watch Notre Dame basketball, I watch Hannah Hidalgo, I watch Olivia Miles. Watching the NC State game was the first time I actually watched a Notre Dame game not looking and keeping track of Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles, mainly because they didn't play all that great against NC State. Sonia Citron is a really good basketball player. She's great on both sides of the ball. She's clutch. She's a great defender, which I didn't know about her at all. And she's a really reliable shooter. And if there's one thing that I know from having watched Mystics basketball all this time, and especially if you look back to what got them their first only championship in 2019, it was great shooting and versatile defense. And over time, they've kind of flirted with the idea of getting back to that. I think drafting Sonia Citron, pairing her with Shakira Austin and Aaliyah Edwards and whoever they draft at 4 and 6, I think will further nudge them back in that direction. And I think it'd be a great fit. I think there are a couple more moves that they'll need to make to really turn this roster around. Like I said, I'll talk about that in a second. But if I had to pick the player to go at 3, it should be Sonia. But whether they take her at 3 or take her at 4, it really doesn't matter because they have both picks in the first place.
I like the Kiki, Sonia. I like going Kiki, Sonia, and no one has brought up to me what's a true appeal is teaming up Kiki with Aaliyah Edwards. Now you bring up Anissa Morrow, where now we're talking a little too many forwards, too many bigs, because they don't need. They're definitely not going Dominique Malunga. Like I said, that's not. I mean, but Kiki is so versatile and so mobile, and I know Shakira Austin is there, but you can still go Kiki. And like my mind I get excited thinking about Aaliyah Edwards with Kiki Iriafen. Like that's
a really great
right there. And really not to exclude Shakira Austin from that. Right. You still have her, but like Kiki and Aaliyah, those are 2 hybrid posts that are very versatile, can do a lot of things. They can fit. So if you go with the Kiki, I'm with you on Sonia Citron. I started thinking as you were talking, I'm like, Sonia would be really the perfect next pick, the prototypical shooting guard, maybe the best shooting guard in this draft.
I would argue.
I would say she is. I would agree with you there.
Yeah, and I would even argue this is a situation. And again, there could be somebody on YouTube or Twitter right now that kind of like fact checks me on this, but I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this, especially for the Mystics. Like as much as I love just giving Marcus a hard time, when I saw AE walk in with the face mask, I said, "Oh, what happened, brother? Like leave her alone." See, my mic knows when to cut. But no, it is a situation different from so many other, because where Rakia Jackson and Cameron Brink were coming into a situation where there pretty much wasn't anything else going on over there outside of Hamby. It's definitely something, or even Chicago, okay, we traded away Kalia Copper, we'll trade away Alana Smith, Courtney Williams is gone, boom, boom, boom. We have Camilla, we have Angel. Now 2025, we're trading assets. You could see a situation with Aaliyah Edwards already there, already kind of making her mark in year 1 with 3 top 10 picks going into this year. What does 2026 look like in an offseason for the Washington Mystics, especially with the new CBA? They have all these players on rookie contracts. Obviously, you can kind of pivot that to a way to where it's like, okay, let's get a big name free agent. By the time their contract's up, now we can pay Aaliyah, now we can pay Kiki, whoever, without it all kind of mixing together to a point to kind of like we saw with the Aces, where they kind of have to start pumping some people out just because it's not working out financially. So I'm really excited for this. I think having 3 top 10 picks in here, I'm not trading any of them. I saw a couple people on Twitter like trade them all for Paige, and I'm like, no. And that's great. Like Paige is great, and Paige is going to do great, but 3 for 1 at the end of the day. It's like if you told me we could have got Camila Cardoso, Cameron Brink, and Angel, and would I trade that for Caitlin Clark? Probably not. And that's no disrespect, but it's like I would, and I'm Irish, so like I'm usually a losing betting man, but I'm a betting man nonetheless. So I would definitely bet on quantity over. It's kind of the same quality if we're being completely honest. So it's the quality of the quantity, however you want to mish that. But I think it's something we just haven't seen before, and I think it's really interesting to see if, to Marcus's point, if we got please just get a vet in that room. If they could sign somebody before the beginning of camp, I think it could be a lot of fun this season.
It's like I feel like the Mystics are like the new OKC, Marcus. Like, I mean, you
They
guys
are.
really just
They have-
cashed in on major draft picks, and like over the next few years, it feels like we're gonna see the return on that.
Mhm.
So I do think so. I was 3 weeks ago. I was very much in the mindset that someone needs to be signed in Washington if you're going to try to make this work. And then they traded Ariel Atkins. And then the question for me became: are the Mystics done making moves? And when you look at the landscape of this roster, right, there's no way that you trade your best player, your longest tenured player, and a key contributor to that 2019 roster, that championship roster, and stop there. And so when you look at this roster, I think there's 3 players that, if the Mystics aren't done making moves, I wouldn't be surprised if either 3 of them were traded. The first one's Brittany Sykes, who, Martin, I know you love. Brittany Sykes in 2023, in her first season in DC, finished 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Like, she is, again, a great player. And there are teams who could greatly use her services. The New York Liberty could greatly use the services of Brittany Sykes. The Connecticut Sun denied Marina Mabrey's trade request because they don't want to hit the reset button. Maybe a way to show that they're serious about trying to do something might be looking to trade for Brittany Sykes. Either way, the Liberty have 7, the Sun have 8. If Brittany Sykes is going out the door, one of those 2 picks should be coming back in return. The other player that they could trade is Stephanie Dawson. Stephanie Dawson had a great season last season. She's turned into the quintessential stretch big, if you ask me. I believe she led the team in 3-point percentage last season, shooting somewhere around 42% from 3, I believe. The Minnesota Lynx were the best 3-point shooting team in the league last season by percentage at 38%. But Martin, you and I talked about how the one thing that they didn't have is a body to throw at Jonquel Jones. I'm not at all saying that Stephanie Dawson is a defensive stalwart and a defensive anchor. But if they were to run into Liberty again, Stephanie Dawson is certainly a body that they could throw at Jonquel Jones, make a little bit more uncomfortable if they were to match up in a playoff series again. And the Lynx have the 11th pick, and I believe also the 15th pick in this year's draft. If you're going to send Stephanie Dawson to Minnesota, one of those picks should be coming back. The third one's a bit of a stretch. It's Carly Samuelson. She's just like one of those players in the league who you can always rely on for a bucket off the bench. There are a couple teams in the league that who could use her services coming off the bench. I think the one team that I'm looking at again is Minnesota, if they just want to maintain their reputation as one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league. But also another team I think who might be interested in a Carly Samuelson is the Indiana Fever. They have surrounded Caitlin Clark with a lot of really good players, a lot of whom can shoot the lights out of the building, and adding Carly Samuelson to that off the bench could only help bolster that bench production. All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, Mike, you're right. The Mystics are in an interesting position. They have 3 first-round picks this year. Getting a 4th first-round pick this year would essentially give them the opportunity to draft 3 new starters and a player off the bench.
Yeah. I mean, that's a new 5, bro.
It is. And if you want to talk about the OKC model, right, the OKC did for a little bit of time. They brought CP3 in there to work with Shea just a little bit, and then they sent him on his way, right? And they've done that with a couple of different players before sending them on their way. But I think the Washington Mystics are in a unique position as when you think about where the trajectory of the talent is going for the WNBA as far as the players coming out, where if you just get players who fit and you hit on your draft picks, you might not need that veteran to come in and coach up the team because your previous draft picks can become those veterans, right? They're not going to be good anytime soon. So the players they're bringing in are all winners. Aaliyah Edwards is a winner. Like, she played for UConn. They won a lot of games when she was there. Shakira Austin, not as much winning done for her, but like Kiki Iriafin is a winner, and so are some of the other players they could potentially draft over the next couple of seasons. If I were the Washington Mystics, I would look to trade Brittany Sykes. I'd look to trade Stephanie Dawson or look to trade Carly Samuelson and just continue to stack up on those draft picks. And maybe we get into a position in a couple of years where we are the Chicago Sky and we could afford to trade some of those high quality draft picks for reliable veterans with championship experience who can help us get over the hump. I think the Washington Mystics. Go ahead.
My bad, Marcus. I was just going to say, like, I don't even think you need to do that. You don't need to be the Chicago Sky because, like we kind of talked about earlier in the show, the reason why they, in my opinion, let's get Skytown out of here. This is Washington Kid now. We're just in here with Marcus, and I hate life because I'm a Mystics fan. No, but in all seriousness, like, if you're trading away Ariel, it's because you didn't want to extend Ariel. And that's the biggest thing right there. That is the key factor, because when I'm looking at this list, Marcus, name, if you could right now, we'll start Aaliyah Edwards as your first, and then name 3 players you think they could draft in that top 10.
in the top
that
10.
you would want? Just 3 of them.
Sonia Citron, Kiki Iriafen, and whoever at 6. Maybe you
And
go
whoever
Garden.
at 6. Maybe
Whoever.
Azzy, maybe whoever. Like
maybe Az if she comes out. Maybe you looking at Elisa Morrow. Anyone really at 6.
So now you got 4 of a starting 5, all on a rookie deal. Now you're going into 2026 with the new CBA, and you have Jackie Young, Kelsey Mitchell, Jewel Lloyd, Kalia Copper, Enrique, Gabby Williams, Satu, Natasha Howard, Brittany Griner, Skylar, Marina, a bunch, Sabrina Unescu. Like, we have people that you can just plug, that one champion in that room, one seasoned vet, one top 10 player, full of all of those year 2, year 3 players. I mean, the 2026 Washington Mystics, you say what you want. If they do this right, they could win it all. And that's
been
really
that's been my big gripe with them both on and off the show, and conversation with Martin is, okay, you fire Coach Tebow, you fire GM Tebow, rightfully so. You're not going to be able to fire Coach without firing GM because GM is Pops. I totally understand that. But with ushering in a new era, like, there has to be an identity. And my big stress is when you look at what some of these I wasn't saying the Mystics needed to go out and make a big splash like the Sun did, or make strategic moves like the Wings did, because they weren't equipped for that, right? But for your only move up until Sunday to be let your best bench player in Chatoy Walker-Kimbrough go out the door, and she finished 3rd in 6th player of the year voting last year, like, that's not a good look this close to the draft when you're sitting on 2 picks and it's not really clear what you're doing. When you couple that with how great Aaliyah Edwards has looked in Unrivaled, specifically in that one-on-one tournament, look at the growth that Shakira Austin has made. She hasn't had really a fully healthy season yet, and I'm really crossing her fingers that she can have one this season, because Martin knows how much I am a fan of Shakira Austin and what she brings to the floor. Like, you have to commit. And so the reason why I'm saying maybe you do look like a Chicago Skies, but I do think, despite how great and how stacked the free agency class is going to be next year, a lot of those players are going to come back. Like, the only reason why a lot of those players are free agents is because the new CBA is on the way. Most of the players that you listed are players who signed new deals this year with new teams, right? And they might all come back. They just want more money under the new CBA. And so I understand that. And so if we want to take the OKC Thunder approach, let's stack up on the picks. Let's hit when we know we can hit. And if we have enough that are lucrative enough, because we might not be at that level yet, we can trade them and get a couple of key vets at the same time, let's do that. Because the other thing to keep in mind too is, as the year goes on, some of these other players who are young now, who don't have a lot of skin in the game now, could have a little bit more skin in the game in 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how their teams are doing and how they individually progress. And now if you bring that into what you have right now, I think it would be a massive failure on the part of the Washington Mystics to turn over a new leaf, to begin a new era, to have 2 players who I think have the potential to be bona fide superstars in this league, in Aaliyah Edwards and Shakira Austin, and not build around them as soon as possible. And if the direction is the draft, that's fine, but let's scout correctly. Let's build this team appropriately. And if we need to throw some picks away to bring in some other key vets, let's do that along the way. But if we want to just go out and build this team specifically through the draft, I don't mind that. We're looking right now in the NBA, and we're seeing the Oklahoma City Thunder, the youngest team in the league. They're probably going to make it to the Western Conference Finals off the strength of great drafting and trading picks when needed, because they had so many, right? If the Mystics can steal that model and do it well, because there's a bunch of other teams who have tried to do that and they haven't done it well at all. But if they can steal that model and do it well, they can get back to being competitive and being one of the best teams in the league and actually being a championship contender. The tough thing for them is they haven't been relevant, a lot of it due to injury. So let's just start over. And I have no problem with that. They just have to do it right. As long as they do it right, the Mystics have a potential gold mine on their hands with all the talent that's coming out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Of course, you can always mess up, but I don't see how they could get this wrong, because I think they're in a great situation where they are going to be young, so they may not win a ton of games. They may have a lottery pick again next year, so we are looking at the potential for getting good draft picks for the next 2, maybe 3 years, like top 5 first round draft picks. Like, it feels like that's where they're going. Like, building through the draft, stockpiling draft picks. I don't know if they'll make more moves to get more draft picks, but it seems like right now they're in a spot where they're about to get, they're in a really good spot. They're about to get 3 top 6 picks. Like, those could be 3 starters. Like, again, might not be expected to win a ton of games. That's fine. We'll get another good pick next year. Maybe they do another trade and get 2 more picks in the top 5. Who knows? But this feels like a long-term project, and I wouldn't mind if I was a Mystics fan. I would be excited about just like making the decision about our identity now and just definitively saying like we're starting over, we're building through the draft, and we're looking to get a good crop of these really good players that are coming out over the next couple of years.
I think if the Mystics can walk into game 1 of the season with a starting 5 that consists of whoever the best guard available is at 6, let's just say that's Georgia Amore, Kiki Iriafen, Sonia Citron, Aaliyah Edwards, and Shakira Austin, and that's the starting 5, and they're all fully healthy, I think that's at least something to start with.
Yeah, and think about it. Like, it reminds me of when we talked about Angel and Camilla going to Chicago last year, Mike. Like, that's a beautiful model also for translating these passionate college fans into the WNBA.
Yeah.
Like, imagine this Mystics team having a Georgia Amore and an AZ Fudd or a Kiki, like that. So now they're going to look like a college team. Again, it's very OKC coded. Like, they're going to feel like a college team. And I think that's going to be good for their brand.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like, I don't know what it is. I'm not disrespecting any front office in the league, but I just feel like there's always so many snubs. Like, you remember that scene in Wolf of Wall Street where they're just cracking up and the dude's on the phone buying more stock and they're just laughing their ass off in the background? That was me watching the draft, cackling on the floor, watching Angel drop to Chicago. And I'm just like, what was it, 7 or 8? And I'm just like, that's going to happen again this year. And I could see it through these mock drafts. Like, and no disrespect, but you mentioned a product in Dominique who has no stats for the 2024 season that I could see as of right now, obviously overseas. So it's a different conversation. I'd have to look into that, but 5 for what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, what, 5, maybe 10, maybe 7 or 8. Like, we can have that conversation, but we're skipping Kiki for a project that hasn't played in collegiate basketball, which is the best women's sports right now, is women's basketball in collegiate level in the United States. And like that for me is everything. So I also kind of, I'm a pitch something for the homie, I'm just the messenger. I'm just saying it's a nice 4. You throw in Kennedy Carter, see what could potentially happen. Number 1 scorer for the Sky last year. This is a playoff team if you add a Kennedy Carter on a cheap deal, because nobody has offered her a contract as of right now, from what we understand. I understand there's issues in LA and Atlanta and kind of Chicago, but that's been a little more low key, but there were issues. If you could potentially convince Kurt Miller to bring in another scorer at the guard position, whatever rookie guard you bring in, to kind of just make sure that she doesn't have to be that number 1 option, I think you're in a spot right now where it's like, you bring in any seasoned vet at the guard spot, whoever's left, it's exciting, whether it's Kennedy or not. But that's just my example. Like, Kennedy averages 20 points per game last year. What the fuck are we doing? It's March, brother. You know what I mean? And I know. Like, anybody in the chat, I know. I was there. Like, trust, we could talk about it another time, but I know. But like, again, 20 points is 20 points. So you know what I mean? I'll do it. It's not a Liz Cambage situation, is all I'm saying. It's just
I'd sign her.
I would say if there's a team in the league, if there's a team in the league right now who can afford to take a risk on Kennedy Carter, it's the Mystics. They have nothing.
The only pushback is I wouldn't, if sometimes Kennedy has the anger stuff going on. I wouldn't want to put 3 rookies into that situation, and Aaliyah Edwards in year 2. So like if we've talked about it on the pod before, and I'd love to talk to you guys about it again if you ever have me on the show again. But if maybe in the contract, it's we're talking about therapy, or we're talking about like, hey, we're gonna work out some things, to kind of de-stress is the right word I would use. I think that could definitely be worked out.
Last thing I'll say on Dominique Malonga is that I've consistently seen her mocked at 5 for Golden State, which makes sense to me from the standpoint of, again, like Martin, we talked about how if you draft good college players from good college teams to your teams, especially a lot of those new college fans, they have no choice but to be a fan of your team. We're talking about a player from an entirely different country. And it would be very similar to, maybe not exactly the same because Wemby's different, but it'd be very similar to Wemby being drafted to the Spurs. Like, now you have an entire country and an entire untapped market. I don't think, just for my own personal, with what I imagine this team potentially being, I don't think the Mystics should draft Dominique Malonga. I think that a player like her, from what I've seen, being, as a project would make the most sense to go to a Golden State because they're new and they themselves are also a project, right? The Mystics should want to establish an identity and establish one firm. And the only reason they should draft Dominique Malunga is if they're absolutely positive that she's not a project, but she's a finished product or as close to finished product as you could possibly be at this point in her career that can contribute early and often for a team that's trying to get back into the thick of things in the WNBA. It's always a pleasure to talk women's hoops with Martin. It's even more of a pleasure to do it with Mike Hughes. Mike Hughes, thank you, my guy, for stopping by. Real quick before we get out of here, please plug yourself, let everybody know where they can find you and all of your content.
Man, fuck that, bro. You can check me out on Protect Our Queens. We're always doing stuff. We're doing amazing things all the time. That's where the fuck you can find me, bro. Otherwise, the Shy Kid, you know, I'm in the tags. You can see me in the comments. I'm usually, you know, or you could just, you know, check out what Marcus has recently commented on, since he loves to just absolutely remind me of how many wins the Chicago Bears have had since 2005. So you can always just check out the comments. You can see Marcus somewhere commenting on it. But I appreciate you guys, man. There's nobody else I'd rather do this with. It's a lot of fun. I think, you know, there's a lot of different conversations. I think when we make these clips later on and kind of just see how people engage with it. Some people are gonna love them, some people are gonna hate them, and some people, you know, is just here to hang out, brother. So it's always a vibe, man.
Always love, man. Always good to have you on, and you will be back as we continue to, you know, cover the W and talk about Chicago. You know, you do your thing covering Chicago sports. You know, it's big love from this side, so we appreciate how you do your thing. Looking forward to getting closer to the draft and the season and getting into the thick of things, man. It's gonna be fun.
And when you're finished following Mike Hughes and the Shy Kid and all of his stuff, make sure you come back or do it before to Basketball Society and follow Basketball Society. Subscribe to Basketball Society on YouTube so you don't miss any future content from Protect Our Queens. You can also follow on Instagram at Protect Our Queens _ or on Twitter at PO Queens _. And of course, you can follow Basketball Society on those platforms as well. So for my guy, Martin Sories of Basketball Society, and Mike Hughes, the Shy Kid, this is Marcus of Protect Our Queens signing off. Thank you guys for watching. And as always, you guys enjoy yourselves some women's basketball.